Okay, all right. Let's do a live show already. Okay, let's just do it. What do you say? It's Monday night. It's 9:00. We might as well just do a live show, right? For those people who, of course, are watching live on YouTube, if you're catching this as a podcast on Tuesday, August 30th or later, then I deeply, deeply appreciate you doing that. All right, it is the Unfound Live Show on YouTube for August 29th, 2022. Cannot believe that it has been 4 weeks since my birthday. It seems like yesterday. We had I think I've said that every week since. The happy birthday sign up there behind me that looked like a 2-year-old put it up there, but I did it. Seems like yesterday. I don't know where this month is gone. It was a good month, I guess. Pretty good month. Won a disc golf tournament this month, so that's not bad at all. It's always a good month when that happens. Did not play very well in another disc golf tournament, but a lot got done this month. And I'm going to be telling you about some of the things that are going to be happening upcoming for Unfound this fall. Going to talk to you about some crazy stories that happened to me at the end of last week. And, of course, we're going to cover some Unfound news, and we're going to cover some international news. I got a nice agenda, as I always do, I think, for these live shows. I should know what I'm doing by this time. I've been doing these live shows for almost 5 years now. You think I come to the microphone prepared every time with a lot of confidence. So who is in here? And then we will get right to this. Suzanne, she got in first. Nephew Charles got in second. Hello, Charles. LaFord, what's going on? Good to see you. 2 nights in a row, LaFord. That's pretty cool. And Twinkle and Jasmine and Delane. What's going on, Delane? Delane, always good to see your name in the chat. Jasmine. Hello, Paula. Lisa. What's going on? No, behave, Lisa. Hi, handsome. Look at you, Lisa, trying to suck up to the teacher. Nicely done. Kathy, Mustang. Hello, Mustang Sally. What's going on with you? Good to see you. And Coffee Lover. And who else we have down the list here? And so everybody, thank you. Always love being here. And maybe Cherie will get in here eventually to moderate if she wants to come in and say hi. I think she'll be here. She usually tells me if she has something going on, but I may have to moderate this myself. If I do, then brace for impact. But all right, let's get it started. I think I always start these live shows off with disc golf. I haven't had a tournament in a few weeks. Really don't have another official PDGA tournament until Floral City, which is where I won about 3 weeks ago. Going to be going back up there. What is it? September 9th and 10th. I think it is. And I'll be driving up there. It's a 2-day tournament. And so I will be staying in Brooksville at an Airbnb, probably one of the nicest Airbnbs I've ever stayed at. And I've stayed at a few because, as all of you know, I go out of town quite a bit for disc golf tournaments. And I kind of mix it up between hotel rooms and Airbnbs. It just depends. But this place that I've found in Brooksville, which is south of the course by about 20 minutes or something, it's pretty nice. It's so nice that it's the type of place I could actually live in it. Yeah, that it's that nice. And so I always enjoy when there's going to be a tournament up that way. That is the place I try to get. And, of course, I'm not going to be playing a ton of tournaments the rest of the year. I'm just really trying to get enough points to play Worlds next year. That's my first goal, and then we'll see what happens after that. But I usually like to try to arrange my staying or living arrangements well in advance. Because, a lot of these places that we play a lot of people do come into town like I do, even if they're amateurs and they're looking for places. So I always try to get in there really early. I don't want to, be having to go for a C grade or D grade place. Now, if you're playing over in a place like Orlando, that's no big deal. But Floral City, it's out in the middle of nowhere. The course is out in the middle of nowhere. And it's really not that convenient to drive back and forth for a 2-day tournament. So you have to kind of look around. Like when I go down to Estero has some hotels down there kind of close, but usually they're kind of expensive. And so I have 2 different places that I'll stay down there. Not quite as nice, but still reliable. But this place up in Brooksville is probably, like I said, the nicest Airbnb that I've stayed in a few times. So I'm looking forward to that. And that is coming up. We'll see how I do there. Maybe a little pressure on me since just not that long ago I won there in intermediate. I'm going to be playing in intermediate again. So we'll see what happens. So the last few days, I've been going up to San Key. In fact, I did that this evening, but I got home in time enough to, do my hair and everything. Just going up there, videoing myself, looking at my form a little bit, working on that a little bit, seeing if it can be improved. It can always be improved. So I video myself either using my phone or my tablet, depending, and I'll just let it run and it'll be on a tripod and I'll be throwing and then I'll look at it later. Like I'll be looking at that like before I go to bed. So that's what's been going on in my disc golf life. I was going to play with the club yesterday morning, but on Saturday night at about, or I guess technically Sunday morning, the fire/smoke alarm went off in this building. So that made it a little difficult. And the fire department was in no rush to get here. In fact, I heard it go off. And so I went out and sat out on the balcony on that side by the elevator, just waiting for the fire trucks to show up. I think it took them 20 minutes and it's right up the street. That's what's funny. So they came down and you could just tell there wasn't anything going on and nobody was going out, leaving the building or anything. So I just hung out here on the 8th floor for a while. And so that kind of delayed me getting to bed. And so when it came to getting up at 8:30 on Sunday morning, as I think many of you know, I'm a late riser, late going to bed, late riser. That just wasn't going to work on Sunday morning. So I didn't go. But that's really just about all that's going on in my disc golf life. Although PDGA Worlds are this week, starting tomorrow. So I'll be watching that while doing my work, getting prepared for this Friday's episode, which is the 6th anniversary episode. Cannot believe it. And I'll be talking about that a little later. So I have the Disc Golf Network. It'll play live from tomorrow through Saturday. So I'm going to have to figure out a way to both watch that and do my work and at the same time or something. So I'm really looking forward to all of that. L'Oracle, what's going on? L'Oracle, good to see you there in your green name. All those people in green are, of course, members of this channel for the low price of 10 cents a day. Thank you to all the members. And in fact, I've created a new membership trailer that I will talk about before I am done tonight. And then Sarah, hello, Sarah. How are you? She says, hey, I just subscribed. Well, thank you, Sarah. I deeply appreciate it. Thank you for taking time out of your Monday night to see what the live show is all about. All right. Allow me to get to the 2 crazy stories, things that have happened in my life since we all got together a week ago. Little did I know these things would happen later in the week. And because I have to tell you, not too many dramatic things really happen in my life. I think when you're a single guy and you're not in a relationship, you don't have any pets, you don't have any kids, there is only so much that can happen. And then you work for yourself, like there's only so much that can happen. I mean, you certainly could get sick. I certainly could be diagnosed with cancer or anything, but not having a lot of those things in your life limits kind of the craziness or the unforeseen things that can happen. Of course, my father's still alive. He's 85. You never know what can happen there, but he's in fantastic health and everything, except for him losing, of course, his driver's license earlier this year. But other than that, not much goes on drama-wise in my life, really. But that all changed on Thursday, and it kind of turned over to Friday. And I realized, compared to a lot of things that many of you go through, these are not the worst things in the world, but these are things that were unexpected. And I kind of, at least for a couple of the things, I can look back and kind of be relieved about them a little bit. But then the one thing, it's going to be with me for a while. Anyway. I've been having a tooth issue down here. Now, many of you know who were watching last year, going into September of October of this show last year, you know that I spent a lot of time at the dentist last year. A lot of time. And it's really because I hadn't been to the dentist in about 11 years. I had not been to the dentist since I moved to Florida in 2011. I know that sounds bad, but that's the truth. And really, I've not had a lot of tooth problems over my life. But what brought me originally to the dentist almost a year ago was that this root canal that I had done in 2000 would once in a while bother me. It would ache. And it really got bad when I went to the Judas Priest concert last year with my buddy Dana. It was just aching. Don't know why. So I ended up, I'm going to have to go to the dentist, and who the heck knows what else he's going to find, being that I haven't been to the dentist in so long. But, what are you going to do? It just came due. So I go, and as it turned out, there was nothing wrong with this root canal that I had done 20 some years ago. Who knows why it was sore? He x-rayed it. He goes, I don't know what to tell you. But while he was doing that, of course, he discovered other issues. And I knew that I had a chipped tooth up here. And, and I grind my teeth, and that's caused a lot of problems when I sleep. And so in the end, and I had a root canal done on another, that was the chipped tooth. It became a root canal. And then, not cavities, but things that were not right. And I spent a lot of money last year. And of course, I don't have dental insurance. Most people don't. I have health insurance that I've paid for myself for years and years and years, but I don't have any dental insurance. And so that's coming right out of my pocket. And I had to finance it. And I've been financing it ever since. And so it was a certain payment amount, not cheap, but like the root canal that I had done, I had to pay for that right away. There was no finance and no lending point or anything, dental care or whatever they call that. That they wanted payment right now. So some things I had to pay right there. Other things I could finance through my dentist. So I had this payment plan through Lending Point, and I was making those payments every month. And like I said, I spent quite a bit. Not quite 5 figures in teeth work, but close. Last year, between September and November. And this included a mouth guard, and that mouth guard has been such a savior you don't even know. So, hello, everyone. Yes. Hello, Jill. Hello, Deborah. I better catch up here. Hello, Deborah. What's going on? Good to see you. Latoya said, had to take from all the crime. So you come and listen to the Unfound Live Show. That's an interesting choice, Latoya. Hello, Marlene. What's going on? Apply for care credit. Yeah, I could do that, Sarah. Sarah, certainly. Lisa, thank you towards your dental care. Thank you, Lisa. Deeply appreciated. You're very generous. Um, I think he does. And, this financing, though, I'm doing, you should know, is no interest. As long as I make a certain amount of payment every month, there's no interest. So that's fine. I'm not, it's not something, of course, if I wasn't making a certain payment, then it would be with interest and it would be a lot more, if it was this amount, but with interest, it'd be like 25% more. I'm making the payments. I made the payments, so there would be no interest on the loan. Just so I'm clear on that. I don't want to pay interest. I don't like having loans and stuff anyway. But coming into this year, I was thinking, you know what? All right, spent all this money on my teeth. Everything's good. Getting them cleaned. Everything's fine. And, everything's fixed. All I got to do is keep making these payments. And by about October, all these monthly payments will be done and it'll be awesome. And so I got my teeth cleaned like in March and then this summer or whenever, and everything was good. Well, about 3 weeks ago, this root canal, once again, the thing that brought me to the doctor or the dentist in the first place last year, which ended up being no problem, it started to ache again. And I did the normal things, took some Advil, kind of, using the electric toothbrush, kind of stayed away from it for a while. It was a little sensitive and everything, but it wasn't going away. So and there was like a bump on my gum right beside this tooth on the outside. So I made an appointment last Wednesday. I showed up at the dentist at 10:30 on Thursday. Went in there. They took an x-ray. The assistant took the x-ray. She brought it in and she put it up there. And the dentist, I didn't even see the Dr. Harkins, who's a fine guy. He's done great work. I have no complaints about him. Dentistry is not cheap, though. I don't know what you can do about that. But she put it up there like on the board and he hadn't even come in yet. I looked at the picture and I already knew what the problem was. And I already knew, yep, this is going to be expensive. This root canal that I had done 22 years ago, I got it done when I was working at Star Trek because I had dental insurance when I worked at Star Trek. And this tooth had been a problem for a long time. In fact, Charles, being that you're in here, the first time this tooth ever gave me a problem was way back in 1994. I was with your mother, my sister, and your grandmother, my biological mother, out at her place in Ohio. We went to the movies, and I cracked this tooth while we were out. It had a cavity. I cracked it. That's the originally problem from 1994. I didn't get a root canal done on it until 6 years later. And in fact, I haven't even brought this up to your mother yet, Charles. But as soon as I looked at the picture, the dentist didn't even need to come in. I cracked that tooth. I cracked it somehow. I cracked it. Now, granted, the good news is that being that it's a root canal, there's no pain. There's not the pain that you would normally associate with that. Because when you crack a tooth that's actually a real tooth with nerve in it, I mean, you'll just die. The pain is horrible. But it really wasn't that bad, but I cracked it. I mean, I could see it right on before I said, you don't need to be an expert to see that. And the assistant says, yep, that's true. I cracked it. So it's still there, but it's cracked in half. It's only hanging on by like the back half of the tooth. The front part of the tooth is cracked under the gum. There's 2 posts in there, like when they do root canals. The one post isn't even doing anything anymore. So I got to get that fixed, and that's not cheap. So I'm going to have to get a bridge put in over here between my back tooth and the tooth in front of it. Luckily, those two teeth are good. And so I'm going to have that done. And as you can imagine, that's not cheap. And so I'm going to go back to another financing plan for another year. This one was just ending. In fact, I just made my last payment on all the work that I got done last year. I'm going to be making payments again. You can't make this stuff up. So there's that. Hello, Marlene. Yeah, Charles, no kidding. This is no kidding. Marlene, sorry to hear that you were in the hospital. Wow. Okay. Sarah says, wow, that's 28 years ago. Actually, yeah, that's 28 years ago that this tooth originally cracked. I remember where I was, why it happened. And then 6 years later, kind of like did temporary filling on it. When I got to Las Vegas, got that job at Star Trek, and they finally did a root canal on it, and it was fine. Great. And I think 20 some years, what are you going to do? I guess, especially considering that I'm, being that I'm a teeth grinder, that this back tooth lasted probably as long as it did, is probably more than probably was expected. So this thing's cracked in half. It doesn't look like it. The funny thing is I can chew on it. Doesn't hurt. But eventually it's going to crack the rest of the way, and it's just going to be horrible. It's just going to be a mess. So on September 8th, I'm going to be going in there, and it all starts all over again for me with dental payments for another year. It's crazy. So there's that. Now, what's everybody saying here? Yeah, I have a flutter with my heart. Man, Marlene, that sounds serious. Twinkle says, I spent $8,000 at the dentist last year and need more work. Twinkle, I spent more than that, and I thought I was done. But, yeah, the Roracle, $1,700 for a root canal. Mine was around that when I got it done last year. That's true. And that, yeah, LaFord, I can relate to the dental work. I'm getting very expensive work done in October. Lots of payments. Look at everybody. Everybody can identify with Ed tonight. I love it. I guess misery loves company. Toothaches are horrible. Couldn't you get a single implant? I could, TD, but that would actually be more money. That would actually be more money, considering it's back here and what they have to do to keep that back tooth from moving forward in the process. This is actually the cheaper, quicker way to get it done. Yeah, Deborah. Oh, Deborah. Okay, man, that's pretty good for the fillings. Toothache make me hand over the lunch codes. That's funny. Yep, I agree, Charles. But once again, it's cracked, but there's no nerve there. But it's bothering the gum is what it's doing. And that's where the pain's coming from. But he gave me antibiotic and everything else. So that's the first story. So I was all ticked off about that. You just do not know. In fact, I will tell you, it's not his fault, but right in front of the dentist, I did drop some 4-letter words. I did. So there's that. Aren't T and I's part of our bodies? You would think it's part of health insurance. You would think, Latoya. I'm not here to get into any of that. LaForacle says I have to go back because one of my wisdom teeth they pulled as a piece still in there. Wow, I had 2 wisdom teeth pulled like 15 years ago. It was nothing to it. But here's the other, as long as there's no infection, it'll be okay. I think you're right. I mean, they did give me antibiotics, and I can tell that it's a lot different now, but it's just going to have to get done. There's no putting it off because you never know. I mean, even now, I have a week and a half to the work. I'm thinking, it could crack, and I'm going to have to deal with that, if it were to happen. Hate spending money at the dentist. Could have bought a lot of the fun stuff with $8,000. Yeah, well, mine would still be in the bank or invested, Twinkle. So I get you. So this takes me to Friday. So that's kind of the mood that I was in late in the week last week. Then we move on to Friday. Here we are almost a half hour into the live show, but you know me, I love passing along these stories and everything else. So we'll eventually we got plenty of time here. On Friday, I decided I needed a new pair of disc golf shoes. And my brother Brian, Charles' Uncle Brian, works at a shoe store over at the West Shore Mall, which is over in Tampa. So on Friday, I decided that I was going to go over there. I had just put it off as long as I could. These disc golf shoes that I was using had totally destroyed them. Totally destroyed them. So I said, okay, I got this prescription for this, antibiotic from the dentist. I'm going to go do that. I'm going to drive the whole way over to Tampa, see my brother Brian, get some shoes, and come home. And I wanted to get over there and back before the traffic got all crazy on the causeways between Pinellas County and Hillsborough County. So I go to the Publix. I get the prescription. And she shows it to me and tells me what I have to do. 2 to start every 6 hours. There's 29, pills in there. And this should, last until, you actually get the dental work done. Fantastic. I leave. I get in my car. I drive the whole way over to Hillsborough County, which is like a 35-minute drive because of all the stoplights. And then there was a thunderstorm and everybody's driving slow and everything else. But I'm like, okay, got to get these shoes. Going to be good to see Brian. Going to go over there, going to get this done, come home, and it'll be cool. So I get over to the mall. Like I said, this is now like 40 minutes away from like where I'm sitting in my place right now. It's not that far in miles, but between the stoplights and the traffic and everything, that's just how long it is. It's just how long, especially on a Friday afternoon. I get to the mall. I go to get out of my car. Can't find my wallet. Can't find my wallet. I'm going under the seats. I'm looking because sometimes I put my wallet on the passenger seat. I'm looking over on the other side under the passenger seat. And did it slide out of my pocket into the back? Because I usually keep it in my right pocket too. Did it slide out of my pocket of the pants into the back seat? Cannot find it. And the last time I lost my wallet or left it somewhere was like in about 2003. I left it in my car, which was a convertible, and it got stolen. And before that, would probably have to go back to high school. That's how rare this is. So I'm racking my brain. It's not in my car. I'm in the parking lot of the mall. And Brian's like, well, where are you? Are you coming over? I said, I'm out in the parking lot. Can't find my wallet. And I'm like, did I drop it in the parking lot of the Publix when I left there? And I'm thinking, dang. So I call the Publix. And they said, you know what? Nobody's turned one in. I'm sorry. We don't know what to tell you. And I was like, well, you know what? It's only been like 35 minutes since I was there. Maybe I'll get lucky. Maybe I'll drive back over there. Maybe, somebody didn't pick it up. Maybe it's in the parking lot. Somebody parked their car over it. I'll get lucky. Or I'm thinking maybe some good Samaritan picked it up. My phone number's not in my wallet. My address is. Maybe somebody just drove right down the street to my building here and dropped it off like at the security building or something. I'm trying to have positive thoughts. Trying to. So I was like, Brian, I'm going to have to go back over there and I'll just get the shoes another day. So I get back in my car, turn the key, car won't start. Once again, car will not start. Click, 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 click. Click, 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 click. Will not start. No problems with this car. I was like, you have to be kidding me. And so I can't call AAA even though I have it because I don't have my wallet. So eventually what I did was I have jumper cables in my car. So I'm thinking, okay, Brian's here. He has his car. He can go get his car, pull it around here, and we'll just jump my car and try to figure this all later. So I go in, see my brother Brian. We walk out to his car. We drive around the parking lot. He's working, but luckily somebody else was there. Go around, get my jumper cables out, hook them up to his car, hook them up to my car. My car would still not start. Even though we were juicing it up and I tried starting it with the jumper cables while his car's running and everything, my car would still not start. And then it kind of started, but it was only maintaining like barely. The engine was like shaking and everything. And Brian and I are like, maybe something else is wrong with the car. Maybe the engine blew up or, maybe something else is a lot more wrong than, something just like a battery or something. Maybe the engine is toast. Oh, baby. So what eventually happened was that Brian said, okay, here's the keys to my car. Here's my ATM. Here's the pin to the ATM. You do what you got to do, but you got to be back here by 8:00 tonight to pick me up. You do what you got to do. And he drives his wife's former car, which is like a 300Z convertible. It's like a 2006 or 2007 or something like that. So he gives me his the keys to his car. I leave my car there. I don't have a wallet, so I'm driving without a driver's license. I drive the whole way back to over here to this Publix. So I'm still thinking about my wallet first. I'm still thinking about my wallet. This is happening about 3:00. So about an hour after the episode came out on Friday, about an hour after that is when this all started to happen. Yeah, insult to injury. What a crappy day. I don't lose my wallet purse, but man, I could never find my keys. That's funny. Charles, I've lost wallets regularly until I bought an expensive one. That's a good one. When it rains, it pours. Everybody's guessing about my car. What's wrong with it? So I get in his car. I drive the whole way back over here, and I'm in the worst possible mood that I've been in, except of course for my mother dying. Really, really down, really, really down in the dumps. Once again, before the day before, knowing I got expensive dental work. Today, I lose my wallet. The car dies, etc. Hello, Jody. Good to see you. I'm telling in the middle of a big, kind of a funny story. It ends up being funny. So I drive the whole way back over to this Publix where I do all my shopping, all of my pharmacy and all that right there, which is only like 3 miles away from where I live, but it's a long way from where my car now is. I walk into that Publix. I go over to the pharmacy counter. The woman that I dealt with before is not there. There's a couple other people behind the counter, but she's not there. I don't know where she went. There's a guy instead at the register. And I say to the guy, I called here before and it seems nobody, I think, I lost my wallet. I'm trying to track it down and I called here and nobody turned it in. And the guy says to me, I don't know what to tell you. I just haven't heard anything or anything. And my shoulders slouched and I had already looked in the parking lot, nothing in the parking lot. And so I was turning around and just resigned to the fact, okay, I'm going to have to cancel both of my ATM cards. Going to have to go through getting a new driver's license. There was some cash in there and all of that other stuff. I'm slowly going through my mind. Man, this is going to suck. As I'm turning around to walk away from the counter, I hear somebody who I didn't even deal with in the pharmacy before, way down at the other end, say to me, "Did you say wallet?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "We have a wallet." Yeah, we have a wallet. And so this other farm person working in the pharmacy reaches down somewhere behind the counter and pulls out my wallet. You do not even know the overwhelming sense of joy that overswept me. I let out a yell in that Publix that I'm sure everybody in the building heard. Everybody. And what I was able, so obviously I left. What I think happened was that I had my wallet. I had paid using my, took my ATM card out to pay for the prescription. And then the prescription, and it was in a bottle in a bag. And I asked the woman, what are the instructions? And so she took it out. And I think what happened is when she took it out of the bag, I set my wallet on that counter. And so then she showed me take two, and then every 6 hours or whatever. I took it and forgot that I had left my wallet on the counter there. It was just, I was in a hurry. It was a Friday. I wanted to get these shoes. I knew there was going to be bad traffic, all these things running through my head. And I left my wallet sitting there. And all the money was still in it. All the cards were in it, everything. And here it is. I'll even show the wallet to you. Hold on. Here it is. This is my wallet right here. This is one that was lost for a couple hours on Friday. There it is. You don't even know. You just don't even know how overjoyed I was. It was crazy. It was like, whew. And then as soon as I had my wallet, the car problem didn't seem to be as big of a deal, but it was still a big deal because it's over there. And I'm thinking, man, who knows? But I got my wallet. I texted my brother. I told him, I got my wallet. Everything's good. It was at the Publix. I had left it there. It's all, so I'm going to go. I'm going to try to get a battery. We'll see if that works. And my brother Brian did give me a hard time because he even asked me, how old's the battery in this car? And I said, it's the battery that was in it when I bought it 5 years ago. And he starts laughing and goes, oh man, you got to change the battery here in Florida like every 3 years or something. What are you doing? And it's the original battery from when I bought the car about 5 years ago and like 60,000 miles ago. So I go to the AutoZone, first place I come across, get a battery, buy it, not cheap. Speaking of things that aren't cheap. Put it in the car, Brian's car, drive it the whole way over back to the mall. As I'm driving, I'm watching a YouTube video on how to change a battery in a 2016 Sonata. And I'm trying to go through my head, do I have the tools in my trunk to do this? I get over there. The only thing that I didn't have was a Phillips head screwdriver. Went into where Brian works at the shoe store. They had one, gave it to me, brought it back out, followed the directions, had to take like this air cleaner thing off, took the old battery out, and I had the perfect tools for the job, luckily, with the ratchet set and everything else, because I carry tools and the jumper cables always. Put the new battery in, put it all back together, car started right up. So for like 2 hours of my life, my car was broken down and I had no wallet. And somehow in the end, everything resolved itself. It was crazy. You just do not know. And then I went in and I did end up getting a new pair of disc golf shoes, only like 3 hours after 3 hours after I intended to do so. And it was so crazy. You just do not know the euphoria that I told my, yesterday, I texted my brother Brian yesterday telling him, dude, I'm still buzzing from Friday. I'm still buzzing because I just don't know how all those things worked out. You lose your wallet, your car breaks down, and somehow both things get resolved good way within a couple hours. When does that happen? It was so crazy. But you just don't even know. I was so down. You just don't even know it. Now I still have of course, my tooth problem, but it'll just be another payment for another year. I'll just have to live with it. But oh man, I just all these negative thoughts. What happens if I never do find my wallet? What happens if there is more wrong with my car than just needing a battery or something? Because my brother Brian was like, as soon as he heard it, I hadn't put a new battery in it. He was like, well, this is, probably going to fix it. Although he got a little shaky on that when he saw when it did kind of start, the engine was just like vibrating like violently. I put that diehard battery in it, hooked everything up, put everything back together, room right up. And it's been fantastic. And now that I know what a new battery feels like in the car, it's obvious now to me that other battery, I should have known that other battery was going, because before, when you turn the key, maybe it would take a couple revolutions to start. With this new battery, it's vroom. Like as soon as I even start turning the key, it starts. And I don't want to get rid of the car, even though it has almost 100,000 miles on it, because it's been a fantastic car. The only big problem with it is the paint is peeling on the roof, which I'm going to get fixed. But wow, what a Friday. You missed it, Cherie. You missed my long story. I'm still talking about Friday. Maybe Cherie, I think maybe I told her a little bit about it anyway. But what is everybody saying about this? Yeah, it was on. Yeah, good karma. Joy of the wallet was found. Now onto the car, right? Now the car started when you went back. Yeah, that would have been funny, Deborah, if I came back with a new battery and the car started right up with the old one. Now that would have been funny, Deborah. Good humor there. That's a good one. And Jasmine said, I lost my wallet once and I found it under my mattress somehow. Yeah, 5 years is too long. You're right, Kathy. Yes, it's a good battery if it lasted 5 years. Well, the thing is that I didn't realize it till I got the new one. My car is like a mid-sized car. It's a Hyundai Sonata, which is not their smallest sedan. It's like the next to smallest. It's like a Ford Taurus or a Honda Accord, something like that, or a Ford like Focus or something. But it has a 4-cylinder, but the battery in these cars for these 4 cylinders, the battery is huge for a 4-cylinder car. Huge and heavy. So that might have been why it lasted for 5 years, because it's so big and it's only a 4-cylinder car. Very possible. But it went right in. I mean, those instructions that I got off of YouTube, were right on. Perfect. But it was a crazy day. I always lose my wallet, Jody said, so I bought the Tao wallet Bluetooth. Interesting. Suzanne says you deserve new shoes after all of that. Cherie, good to see you tonight. Thank you. Even if it was late, thank you for showing up, Cherie. LaFord says, like a modern day country music song. Maybe. If I was into country music, maybe I could write a tune, LaFord. Sarah says, someone was watching over you. I want you to know, that we really don't talk religion and politics on here on the podcast. And I don't even know, I'm not here to get into that. But yes, I did do a little bit of thanking after all that was resolved. I will admit, just in case, just in case. I did do a little thanking on that. But Kathy says, I had to replace my battery about 18 months ago. After 2.5 years, my daughter changed it. That was nice of her. That's what daughters are for, Kathy. So you were very lucky. Sorry, that's fine, Sarah. No big deal. But that was my Friday. It was even my brother's looking at me, and my brother and I have known each other for almost 30 years now. And we've been through some things, and we lived together once. And, we were through, of course, his mother, my biological mother, dying. And then my mother, dying, a lot of, ugly stuff over the years. But that Friday, it was, I was in a tight spot. And I really, Really, really thank my brother Brian for being there. And it was, of course, it was good that I even made it to the mall where he was and he had his car. And, because I mean, imagine if that had happened on my way to Illinois for PDGA Worlds. Like one of the times I stopped to get gas and the car wouldn't start. I could have AAA and I could have been, imagine losing your wallet and your car breaking down, like driving to Illinois or something. So I guess if it was going to happen, the best place it could have happened was right here near home, here in Florida, where my brother worked. I guess that part of it, was the good part about all of this. You're going to break down. You might as well break down where somebody works and has a car and everything. So what a day. But I was like, I think kind of in a way, I'm still kind of buzzing off of Friday that those things worked out because I just was foreseeing the worst. Do I carry a rabbit's foot? I don't. I'm not that superstitious, Richard. Deborah, rabbit's foot, not so lucky for the rabbit. Yeah, I guess so, Deborah. So that was my Friday story. I was really waiting to tell all of you. I know that we're supposed to get to some true crime stuff that I'm going to talk about, of course. But you know that this live show, as much it is about talking about some of the things that are going on Unfound, but it's about giving you a kind of look behind the scenes. I am one of those people who believes that the more you can get to know the host of anything, whether it's a podcast or a TV show, radio show, or an actor, a professional athlete, or whatever, if you get to know them better and you can see that they're genuine people, they have genuine issues. They're not a character. They have their own lives. They go shopping. They go to the pharmacy. Their cars break down and everything. I'd like to think that makes that person, to be more feel like a friend. And I hope that all of you feel that way about me. And I know that that's always on my mind. For example, like when I went to Worlds and this listener husband was in my group and, about 2/3 of the way through the round, she admitted to me that she's been listening to Unfound for like 3 years and all that. And as I stated at the time, it's very important to me that people have a pleasurable interaction, with me. The worst thing we can do is meet people who we respect, and then we find out that person is a fake or, rude or anything. And that is always on my mind. Okay. Because even, I get in bad moods, but, I always want to make sure that people understand that I am a good person. And it's important for me to know that people know that I am, and I just never want to come across as being rude or anything like that. So being able to talk about some of these things that go on in my own life outside of Unfound, I hope you can identify with it. And, maybe that even makes Unfound a podcast that you want to listen to even more and maybe draw in, tell people that they should be listening to. But, there's this wacky guy named Ed Densel. He does a great podcast, interviews all these people. He's really into disappearance. He's really trying to help people. And on top of everything else, he's kind of this corny, funny guy, isn't afraid to tell everybody about his flaws, his pluses and minuses, and everything else. So there you go. Kathy says, I accidentally left my previous phone in the shopping cart at the grocery store. I rushed back 30 minutes and the cart was put away with my phone still in it. Look at you, Kathy. You're living right too, Kathy. Good to hear it. Shree says, I left my wallet once about 10 years ago when my youngest was sick, had my whole month's pay in it, and someone stole it out of the cart. That sucks. Shree. And one more other item before I move on to some of the Unfound stuff that I want to talk about is that I got up early this morning to watch this Artemis 1 that's going to the moon and everything. Of course, it got scrubbed, and so I got up this morning for no reason. But I think they're pushing it off till a week from now, or of course they had some problems, so I guess they'll have to fix that problem first. But I think from Tampa, as long as there's no clouds or anything, I think eventually I will be able to see the rocket up in the air. So I'm really looking forward to that. I was looking forward to that this morning, but it didn't happen, especially since we're going back to the moon for the first time. And but it didn't happen this morning. So maybe next time. I'm really envious of all my disc golf friends who live over on the Atlantic coast in that area, Daytona Beach, Satellite Beach, those areas, because they got front row seats for that. And I've mentioned like this to my brother Brian and other people that, how cool would it have been to live in that area of Florida, like in the 1960s, when all of those rockets were every few months, a rocket's going up there, all in preparation to land on the moon. How cool would that have been? To be over there at your home and seeing these rockets go. That'd be so cool. So I made it a point to get up early this morning and watch some of the blast off news and everything. And then it didn't happen. I guess we'll try to do it all again next week or whatever. Richard says, as you come across as a nice guy, Richard, I think I try to be a good guy. Some people test my patience. Sometimes some disc golfers test my patience, but I'm really just, I'm a pretty laid back guy for the most part. But I appreciate that, Richard. Thank you. And thank you, Sheree, for saying that. LaFord says, but Ed don't suffer fools. So try. I don't suffer fools kindly. No, I don't. I'm a really good guy and everything, but I'm all about sensibility and perspective. I do not suffer fools kindly. Nope. In fact, that I guess came out in the previous update episode from Friday. Deborah asks, Ed, what was the name of that podcast you were interviewed on? How'd it go? Well, it's out there and it's called Locating the Lost, Deborah, and you can find it if you want to go to our website, theunfoundpodcast.com. You will find that page. You click on it. It will take you right to the link and you can watch it. It's about an hour and 20 minutes long. Deborah, I will tell you that it's probably the best interview that has been done with me since I started Unfound. Really enjoyable. Talk mostly, of course, true crime, but we got into a little disc golf, a little Steelers, a little this, a little that. And that hour and 20 minutes went really, really fast, Deborah. So just go to theunfoundpodcast.com, click on that page, and you will find it. So there you go. All right. Moving on to the unfound items for this episode, now that we're like 50 some minutes in, but hey, I had stuff to talk about. And as I see, thank you for posting that, Sheree, that link. There you go, Deborah. If you click on that link, you will find it. Thank you, Sheree. And it seems to me that losing wallets and dental problems and car problems, everybody can relate to all of those. So, and I appreciate all of you, including your own stories in the chat. Misery loves company, although maybe mine got resolved a lot quicker than many of yours did. But thank you for all your stories as well. The dental issues, the car issues, losing wallets, losing purses. We're all human. We all make mistakes. These things happen. And sometimes they get resolved quickly and sometimes they don't, unfortunately. Lororacle, been listening while helping my daughter with science. Good thing I aced that class way back in the day. That's funny, Lororacle. Richard, I'm about 45 miles from the pad they will take it off from. I watch all the happenings over at the Cape from my backyard. Richard, that's fantastic. That's just so good. I don't say I wish I lived on the Atlantic coast. I think for safety reasons and the sand and everything, I think the water is a lot nicer over here on the Gulf Coast. But when it comes to rockets blasting off, over there is the place to be. It's fantastic. All right, let's move on. Of course, there was no poll this week in the discussion group for obvious reasons. Nothing really to poll for the update episode. Although we did have a think tank. And if you'd like to be a member of the think tank, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast, where I picked out some of the updates. For example, we talked about Zoe Campos's trial now that it's over. We talked about the fiasco that's become the Tom Brown investigation into what actually happened to him. We talked about Joshua Guimond and about the podcast that's being done, the podcast that is devoted to nothing but his disappearance, and got some opinions on what the think tank members thought about the direction that podcast has come in. It seems to me, my perception is they probably understood it better than I do, which is fine. But if you'd like to become a member of the think tank, maybe want to read all of the blogs that I've written about all of the disappearances or most of the disappearances that we've covered on Unfound, just go to patreon.com/Unfound Podcast, and you can make it happen there. Would love to have you as a supporter. And you get all those sorts of kinds of cool stuff, free stuff. Technically not free, but stuff that you get for signing up. And you continue to get new stuff on a weekly, if not monthly basis, or monthly, if not weekly basis. So you might want to consider that. And on top of everything else, I didn't say this yet. If you are watching this tonight, please give this video a thumbs up. It's the live show. You know what to do. Give it a thumbs up while you're on your device, your phone, your tablet, your laptop, your desktop. Whatever you got to do, give this video a thumbs up. And for all of you who are catching this as a podcast the next day, please continue to give this feed a nice review if you could. So moving on to unfound items, one thing that about the update episodes is that you never know where the news is going to come from. And I was really, really happy that we could include some new updates for disappearances that I don't think have been mentioned before. And that's very sad. But, I just try to be really honest with that. I'm not going to mention a disappearance just because. Okay. It's a very easy trap they can fall into. And then suddenly you feel like you have to mention all of them when most of them don't have any updates. Well, then why are you calling it the update episode? And this is the original reason that I include all of the names after all of the updates done. Of course, we're up to 264 now. So that, doing that in memoriam, I guess is what you'd call it, takes some time. But that's the way it's always going to be done. And when the next one comes out in late in December, all of the people, the disappearance that we covered between now and then, they'll get added to the end. And that list will continue to get longer and longer and longer. But you never know where these updates are going to come from. For example, Donald Irwin. I'm pretty sure we've not mentioned him in an update episode before, even though this is update episode number 12. But he got mentioned, and it was really good to being able to include that. Now, fortunately, on the other hand, maybe with April Andrews, had to mention her disappearance. Why? Because her sister, Tanya Washburn, who was the guest, she died back in May. Very sad. Same way with Marina Bolter. I don't think there's been an update for her, but once again, mentioned that because her mother, Tressie, died last year. And once again, I feel horrible about not finding out about that for like a year and a half. I just have to admit, once you get up to 250 guests, it's hard to keep track of all of them. It just is. So, and that's why I tell you that, if you hear anything about this, and I know some of you know some of the guests who have been on Unfound. In fact, many of you have pointed them in Unfound's direction originally. If you hear anything about any of these people, please let me know. Please email me, message me, whatever you got to do, you let me know. Please. Now, there's one maybe that I kind of forgot, and that was Robert Cox, because after the update episode, his sister, who was the guest for his episode way back when, and unfortunately, Robert Cox's episode has the distinction of being the last episode that I did before my mother died. And then, as maybe some of you remember, I took off those 2 weeks. That episode came out, and then my mother went downhill, and I took those 2 weeks off, and then I came back, and then the first episode after that was the disappearance of Lucas Degerness. But so that was like November 2018, but she wanted to tell me that there is a new investigator on Robert Cox's disappearance. If you don't remember what that was, he was having some medical issues, And allegedly, he just walked away from his house one day, but his sister certainly doubts that because Robert was in no condition to walk anywhere. But that's what his wife's daughter said happened, that, they like put him outside like they would once again, maybe just to sit on the back porch, and then he was gone. Their story. But new investigators on his disappearance. His sister seems pretty positive about that. Going to re-interview the wife and other people. And so we'll see what happens there. So she knew that the update episode came out, and she wanted to tell me that. Richard says, I swim in the Gulf, however. Yeah, the Gulf is great for swimming. I mean, 10 months of the year, you can surely swim in it. December, January, it gets a little cool, a little cold. But February through November, you could just jump in and swim anytime in the Gulf. Atlantic, not quite like that. L'Oracle, thank you for the kind words. Sheree says, great update episode. Can't believe it's been 12. I can't either. It's crazy. So those are some of my reflections, and I'm sure I'll be, talking about this in late December or the live show after the update episode. We'll get to lucky number 13, by the way. I'll probably have the same thing to say, that there was some updates that I really, really could not have predicted. I was going to do a Steve Pankey update, but really there's not really that much going on. We're just waiting for this next trial to happen. So I think it's going to happen this fall. That will certainly be included in the next update episode. Will I get called to go back out to Greeley, Colorado again? I have no idea. But if I do, I'll let you know. But that's one of the reasons that not mentioned, just waiting patiently, I guess. We're going to see what happens. So moving on, Unfound Live, the show that you are watching right now. And I've already made a special announcement. In fact, it should have just come out 3 minutes ago. So all of you who are subscribed to the podcast Unfound, you are getting a special announcement as I speak, telling you how this Unfound Live Show, which, as you know, for the summer, I've converted into an audio show that's been on the feed with a regular podcast. It's now getting its own feed. That is the special announcement. And I'm hoping that you will subscribe to it. I sincerely ask that you go on your podcast app, whether you're using iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Pandora, iHeart, wherever, Amazon, we're on Amazon too, that you go and find now the new RSS feed. Now, maybe some of you, maybe it hasn't quite appeared yet, but be looking for it. Do a search for Unfound Live on your podcast app, and I ask you to subscribe to it, because after this episode of Unfound Live, starting next week, it's going to be uploaded to its only RSS feed, and the only thing on that feed will be Unfound Lives, and the only thing that will be on the other one, the original, will be the original episodes, the Friday episodes that you've grown to listen to every week that comes out on Fridays. Did it as an experiment over the summer. I really liked how this has become an audio podcast as well. And that was always my goal, to put it into the regular feed with the podcast. And then at the end of the summer, make it into its own RSS feed. So once again, whatever podcast app that you're using, I hope you will find Unfound Live and subscribe to it and listen to it. Of course, you're listening or watching here on Monday nights. Maybe you want to catch it again. Maybe you miss one. This will give you the opportunity to catch it in the rerun, maybe a little easier than, watching it on YouTube or having it playing on YouTube instead. This means a lot, and you can now listen to the special announcement that is now available as a special announcement. It's like 2 minutes and 45 seconds explaining what's going on. So there you go. This does now have its own RSS feed starting next week. Thank you, Suzanne, for you found it on Amazon. Thank you, Suzanne. And like I said, I just sent the RSS feed to Pandora and Stitcher today, but it's on iTunes. It's on Amazon, as you heard. It's on Spotify, although all of the megaphone advertising, ad placement stuff is not set up yet. That takes a little while, but it's on Spotify. So all of the major places, like iTunes is, of course, the major place. What is it? 70% of the listenership is from iTunes, something like that. And it's on there. So please find it, subscribe to it. I'd appreciate it. Robert asks, Ed, how are you doing? Robert, I'm doing fantastic. If you're just tuning in, I told some heart-wrenching stories from Thursday and Friday. At least a couple of them got resolved. But I'm doing fantastic tonight, Robert. Reason is that got a lot of great work to do this week for the 6th anniversary episode. Got Worlds to watch, Disc Golf Worlds. That's going on. A lot of good things are going on. Robert, thank you for asking. How are you doing, Robert? How are things where you are? Moving on. Some great news is that, at least according to the new numbers. Now, something that I've really not talked about too much this year is that, of course, Unfound is not hosted by Podomatic anymore. It is hosted by Megaphone / Spotify. Technically, Spotify owns Megaphone. Megaphone.fm. And I've now learned the download numbers and everything that I was getting for Podomatic were not real. I don't know where those numbers were coming from. I'm not necessarily saying that they were lying, but they were a bit inflated. I've learned. But the good news is that here in August 2022, once we get to the end of it, I guess at the end of Wednesday, Unfound will have set a record for downloads in a month. In fact, I think we've already set the record with a couple days to go. And I think this is noteworthy because August and September, I've found, are usually slower months for podcasting. I think kids going back to school, a lot of people who are teachers going back to school, everybody's kind of their summer habits are being put away and they're getting back into their fall and winter habits, and podcasting, listening to your favorite podcast, whatever it is, true crime or whatever else, can get kind of put to the back burner for a while. But we're going to set a record for downloads in August, which is something that I could certainly see us setting records. I didn't think it would be in August, though. Maybe November, maybe a January or a February or something. Certainly. So I'm surprised. And it is going to be, it's fairly clear. As you know, Unfound is not one of the most popular true crime podcasts out there. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. Mainly because it's kind of a niche podcast in that we only cover disappearances. We don't cover serial killers. We don't do any paranormal stuff. We really don't do anything like breaking news and things, although I do that once in a while on this YouTube channel. But the podcast is what the podcast is. We cover older or old unsolved disappearances. That's all we do. That's all I do. And so it's a little bit of a niche, only appeals to a certain segment. And I realize that it's never going to be, serial or, some of those true crime podcasts that, of course, were very popular or have been very popular or continue to be popular. It's never going to be that. I'm not too mad about that. But I will tell you that it's very clear now that once we get to that year mark, that Unfound will have over 1 million downloads in a year. We're already well over halfway since what it was the beginning of March. We're already well over halfway to that mark. And as I continue to say, there's nobody who could have been more surprised about that than I am. Now, granted, with Podomatic, it was giving me these crazy numbers that were way, way, way higher than that. But I now know that those numbers weren't real. I'm much more inclined to believe Megaphone and Spotify than I am Podomatic. Once again, I'm not saying the Podomatic was necessarily lying. I just think that the way they do the metrics at Podomatic are heavily inflated. Whereas with Megaphone and Spotify, much bigger company, a lot more influence, and it's much more important to them to get their numbers very, very right. And so when I'm telling you these numbers, I am with 99% assuredness telling you that those are real. So to think that it's going to get over 1 million is just crazy. It's really crazy. And that's all thanks to you taking an interest in the podcast and everything. So we're going to set a record this month, and we're well on the way to, I guess we'll see what September, October, November do. I just can't even, I'm not a big numbers guy, but now that, although I'm my own boss, technically, very, very technically, I am employed by Spotify because they put ads in the, and I get paid for part of that and everything. So, you do get paid on how many downloads and how many ads, or impressions and all of those things. And we're doing very well. Very, very well. We'll continue to work on that. So, just wanted to talk about that, but we're going to set a record this month for August. Shree says, I use Spotify for music and iTunes for podcasts. Funny, I never thought about it until you mentioned the 70%. I don't really use iTunes at all. In fact, I will tell you that in even doing the RSS feed for Unfound Live and going on there, I was in this iTunes program, and I almost didn't know what I was doing. That's how long it's been since I've been in there. Whereas Spotify, I am a subscriber to Spotify. I have the subscribership, so I get to listen to all the music with no ads and all those things. So I'm very, very familiar with Spotify, even before they contacted me back at the end of January. So when it comes to podcasts, that's where I listen to them. For example, Locating the Lost, I listened to a couple of their episodes on Spotify. Find Jody, the Find Jody podcast on Spotify. If there is some other podcast that's covered a disappearance that we're going to cover on Unfound, I listen to it on Spotify. It just seems to me, my perception is Spotify is just easier to use than iTunes. And I'm a Mac guy. In fact, this is the computer I'm using right here. It's a Mac. And I'm, it's just a little weird. Thank you, Deborah. Nice birthday month present. Yes, it is. Thank you, Cherie. Thank you, the Roracle. I wish Charlotte Nagy's case would come to a conclusion. Allie and his family need closure. Yeah, Robert, that's one of those, the man said disappearances. Charlotte's husband said, yeah, she took off or whatever, and nobody believes that. I'm still hopeful it can be solved. Never want to give up hope on that. And as I think we've learned after all these years, of course, Charlotte's was a disappearance we covered very early on in Unfound's existence. I would be inclined to believe that maybe Charlotte, if she is deceased, her remains are not that far away. I think that's kind of, looking at Zoe Campus's and Andrea Bowman's and maybe some others. I think we learned that maybe the remains are maybe a little closer than we think. Tech Death says Spotify. Yes, Tech Death is a big Spotify. If you're into music, Spotify is the best. All the elements. It's so easy to use. Fantastic music. Although there are a few things that are missing off there, some artists and everything. It's fantastic. And I love it. Using it. And I'm not just building them up because I'm with them now. I've been listening. I've had Spotify, I don't know, 5 years, 6 years, something like that. I play it when I'm out in the disc golf course, practicing. Of course, I use it in the car. I use it in my place. I have a Bluetooth speaker there. It's fantastic. I'd recommend it to anybody. Lasso says, I want Stephen Kocher's case to be solved and Killer put away. Yeah, it certainly does look like he got lured there last, so I can't argue with that. Jasmine, well, I get Apple Music for free with my cell phone plan, but I prefer Spotify. Okay, Jasmine. Moving on, of course, Deborah just asked about this earlier, the locating the lost interview that I did last Wednesday night. I can't tell you how much fun I had with that. And I even rewatched the whole thing, not just listened to it, but watched it just to see how I came across. I could just tell how much fun I was having with that interview. It was really good. And it's just, I was telling my dad this because he eventually watched it too, that, it's just so humbling when somebody is doing now their own podcast. Of course, they do this podcast together, that podcast together, those two guys. And one of them saying, you really inspired me. I listened to yours. I listened to the Fine Mara Murray podcast, and it was so inspiring that I started my own. That's just, I know that I'm, that's just making this stuff up. He's just saying this to be, just to be really humble and, corny and everything. But I'm telling you, with all seriousness, even though I have a smile on my face, there's no way that when I started Unfound 6 years ago, that I ever thought that podcasters would be telling me, or at least, and I've had 2 or 3 say that to me over the past few years. You really inspired me. I listened to your podcast and said, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to do something like that. Maybe different topic or whatever. Maybe not as long as some of the Unfound podcast episodes get, but I heard you inspired me. Really think you're doing a good job, very professional and all those things. This is something I could have never predicted 6 years ago, ever. I was just so worried about getting my own episodes done and trying to get away from those 1-star iTunes reviews and all those things, that it never occurred to me that somewhere down the road, people would listen and say, I want to do that too. Now, I was inspired myself to do Unfound, not really realizing there was a true crime community at the time, but my influences come from other places. As I talked about in that interview last Wednesday, I was influenced by kind of the format, at least at the beginning of the episode. We don't start with music. Every episode starts with me talking. That comes from a podcast called Uncommon Knowledge. And my interview style, I take it from a variety of places. Charlie Rose, before he got on into all that sexual harassment stuff. Peter Robinson, Russ Roberts, who does a podcast called Econ Talk. I listened to all of those guys so much that it really, I think, has influenced me as an interviewer, being a good listener. So then when you get turned around and then you're in the place where you're people telling, you that, you influenced me to do that. It's just, I don't even know how to even explain it. It's not something I ever could have predicted. You too, Delane. Thank you. Cherie says, those dudes are really cool. They are. I agree. The interview was really like just 3 guys hanging out. We were hanging out. And in fact, even before the interview started, when Travis originally contacted me and even right before the interview, we're just going to talk. And as anybody would probably suspect, even though I use interview outlines for the interviews I do for Unfound, because the information is very important. We want to make sure we cover everything and we cover it in a way that can be understood. When it comes to me being interviewed, it's just like, we don't need format. Let's just start talking. I'm fine. You ask me a question. If I don't want to answer it, I won't answer it. I wouldn't necessarily say that everything's on the table. Maybe there are certain things that I'm not going to answer, but we don't, the only thing I ask them is if we're going to talk about any specific disappearances that are out there that Unfound is covered, you just let me know so I can kind of brush up a little bit. Other than that, there were no rules for that interview. And and I feel very comfortable doing that. How we got into how Unfound was formed and why is it that's formatted this way. That was all just off the top of my head. I had no idea that would really even talk about that. So, but if you watched it or listened to it, I hope you enjoyed it. It's the most complete interview that's ever been done with me in a capacity as a podcaster. And I really, it was a good time. Moving on. Speaking of being influenced or something, there is a listener out there. Her name is Charlene, and she has a Facebook page. I'm not going to say her last name, but she paints while listening to Unfound. She does painting while she listens. It just, I don't know. Don't ask me. I can't paint. I can't draw. I'm a musician. I'm a pretty good writer. Don't ask me to paint or draw anything. Don't do that. So anybody that can do that is just amazing to me. But she paints or draws while listening to Unfound, and she posted some of her pictures or paintings that she's done while listening to Unfound. I think she put it in, she tagged Unfound in the post, and then I think I shared it in the group, and it's just amazing. It's just, once again, it's one of those things that you never can expect. I'm fascinated by it. You can find her work in the discussion group. I don't know if she sells her work or something. I have no idea. I've really never talked to her about her work. But if you see something you like there in those pictures that are in the discussion group now, maybe you should hit her up about maybe getting one of those paintings, and then you'll have a painting that was made whilst that artist was listening to Unfound. It's an idea. You might want to think about it. So that just came out of nowhere. She had never contacted me before, at least that I can remember, saying, "Oh yeah, big fan of your podcast, and I paint while listening to it." Maybe she sent me that before. I really don't remember. But when she actually put the paintings up and everything, I was like, wow, that's just fantastic. Kathy says, I've been following Stephen Kocher's case for 11 years. His disappearance is how I found Unfound in early 2019. And then Stephanie says, I do cross stitch while listening to Unfound. See, there you go. That's one other thing that I've never attempted to do. That's thank you, Stephanie, for including that. It's people doing these very creative tasks, creative pursuits while listening to the podcast. Something I couldn't have expected. Julie says, a cop gave me a wallet back and I didn't know I had lost it. I lucked out. Never, ever put your social security card in your wallet. Julie, speaking of social security cards, I've never had a social security card. I haven't had one since 2003 when my wallet back then got stolen. I never bothered to file for another social security card. I don't know. I still remember what that wallet looks like too, but me, stupid, I had a Mustang convertible parked in my apartment complex, left the wallet right there in the center console, and somebody took it. It was no fun. No fun. Moving on. Did you all notice it's working now? But this weekend, Namus was down. And it was real weird. If you went on there, there was only one person's name in their database, in their missing persons database. So it's all up and running now, but it was weird for a little bit. And I know for some people, maybe that really scares them because of this thing that happened a couple years ago where it was said that, oh, Namus isn't going to get financed and they're going to take the money away and all of that. And just in the back of my head, I'm thinking, if anybody's going to Namus this week, and I'm sure maybe thoughts of that are going to come back. I'm going to tell all of you, Namus is never going away. Okay. As I told you back at the time when that was going on, that was a ploy by that school to get more money to handle Namus. That was a marketing ploy. That was kind of a we want a better deal ploy. That was nothing real. Namus is not going away. It's too important. They've worked too much on it. And if that school University of North Texas or whatever it is, if they start getting too expensive for the work they want to, surely somebody else will step up. Do not worry about that. Okay. I said it at the time. And maybe just because I have a sales background and I was a car salesman for 4.5 years, I see these things. And everybody was worried about it. I talked about it during a live show at the time. I think I'd maybe even written about it and posted some things about it. But just when I wasn't able to use it the way it's supposed to work this past weekend, because I was working on the next Unfound Now, that I bet a lot of people were kind of despairing. And it's working now, and it's fine. Although the weird thing is the missing man who I've chosen to make the topic of Unfound Now for this month, he's not on Namus. So coincidentally. So I guess if Namus had been up, then I wouldn't have chosen him this month. I would have chosen somebody else. But I think that the man who went missing in California, who is the topic of this month's Unfound Now, certainly a worthy disappearance to cover. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But if any of you tried to use Namus this weekend for whatever reason, you might have been a little worried. It's working now. It's fine. It seems like they were having some sort of technical issue, or maybe they were moving to a new server, or some programmer put the wrong code in or something. These things happen. YouTube goes down once in a while. Facebook goes down once in a while. Google goes. These things happen. So Namus is back up and running, and I want to assure all of you, it's not going anywhere. It's going to be around, I'm sure, all of us, if we live to be 90, it's still going to be there. Okay? Unless the world ends. Pretty sure. Lassa says, Kathy, I haven't followed Stephen's case that long, but I too found it Unfound because of Stephen Kocher. That's interesting. All right. It's interesting that Kathy, who is a think tank member, I've talked to Kathy many times about disappearances. And she's actually done some other work for me personally on some things. It's interesting that Kathy and Lasso found Unfound because of Stephen Kocher, because it's one of the disappearances that we've covered where there was no guest. It was just me talking about my personal experience of living in Las Vegas when Stephen went missing and me being involved in a search and everything that went on at the time. It's very interesting. Okay. Moving on. Unfound Now. I just mentioned it. For you members, it's already available. It came out, when was it? Yesterday. I did all of the filming on Saturday and compiled all of it. And the Unfound Now for the rest of you, all of you should be members, by the way. I would deeply appreciate it if you want to hit the join button down there for 10 cents a day. You can become a member and you get all sorts of cool stuff as a member. You can check what that is by hitting the join button. But the disappearance of Gregory Peterson, he went missing on July 17th of 2022. So like a month and a half ago almost. He went missing from Cloverdale, California, which is way, 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 way up there in the Northern California, well above San Francisco. And the story goes that he was at home and allegedly somebody contacted him about speaking of me and my battery dying, he was allegedly contacted by some acquaintance that this acquaintance had broken down and the person wanted Greg to come help him out. And Greg allegedly did that at 4 a.m. And then later on the Highway 101 north of Cloverdale at 11:30 a.m., so in the morning, 11:30 a.m. when the sun is out, north of Cloverdale, Greg Peterson's car was found on fire on the side of the road. And he hasn't been seen since. So for this Unfound Now, of course, I do a little intro, and then I go to the map showing you where Greg lives, where his car, approximately where his car was found, kind of look at the surrounding area, do some analysis, come back, go through the learning points, and then I also do some analysis at the end. All of you who are not members, you're just going to have to wait till about Sunday and Monday to get to watch that. But the members, they already can view it if they would like. Once again, if you'd like to become a member of this channel for 10 cents a day, just hit the join button below. And then finally is regarding all of the Unfound stuff. And I do have a couple stories, non-Unfound stories that I want to cover. But I have made a new trailer. Speaking of joining as a member, you know that for a lot of the videos that are posted here, and especially in front of the episodes, which eventually get posted here on YouTube, you know that I've had this trailer running for about 6 months, having to do with subscription. You know, I'm sitting in the room that I used to use over there for the live show. And I would tell everybody, you could just subscribe, hit the button right there. You know that video. It's like 23 seconds long. We're going to be mixing in a new trailer that has gotten Cherie's approval. She's looked at it and gave it the thumbs up. Thank you for doing that, Cherie. If anybody ever wants to know anything that I do, something like that, I usually get Cherie's approval on it before it becomes public, because Cherie is always very honest with me. And I'm a better man because of it. And I'm a better podcast host because of it. But she looked it over and she gave it a thumbs up. So we're going to be mixing in a new trailer that has to do with becoming a member of this channel. So there'll be the subscription trailer, and there will be the become a member trailer for this channel. And it'll just vary on which one I use and what kind of mood I'm in, because certainly the subscription trailer has absolutely helped subscription rates for this channel. We're up to, we're over 14,500. I know that's not a lot compared to like John Lordan's channel. That's fine. Not trying to compete with him, but it's pretty good. I'd certainly like to see more views of some of the videos and things, but people get to these things in their own time. And I also realize there are a lot of true crime channels on YouTube that I believe their subscription, their subscribers and their views and things are manufactured. They're not really real. I've convinced myself of that, so I'm cool with it. But that will be put at the beginning of some of the videos that you see on here. Donna says, hope you don't change intro to Unfound. No, the podcast isn't changing. But Donna, if you've watched any of the videos on here, like if you've ever watched an Unfound episode, a Friday episode on here, you know that at the beginning there is usually a little trailer that has me talking about, hi, I'm Ed Denzel, I host Unfound, and I run this YouTube channel. You know that video. That's what I call a trailer before the actual actual episodes start. I've made another one of those. I'm not in this one. You just hear my voice because it's important to put certain things on the screen. So that's going to be another trailer, and I hope you will see it, and I hope will push you toward becoming a member on this channel. All right, moving on. I want to talk about, have any of you, I don't even know why this is on my mind, but it's a mystery movie. And the reason I'm talking about it is for a few reasons. But one of the reasons is because in the movie, the main characters work for a mystery magazine. And they go out and they do crime coverage, a little bit tabloid-like, maybe kind of a cross between TMZ and Unsolved Mysteries and Cops. But I'm wondering if any of you have ever seen the old movie, The Big Clock. It came out in 1948. Ray Milland is in it. Maureen O'Sullivan is in it. Once again, it's the 1948. It's in black and white. And it's a fantastic movie. Now, I've known about this movie for a long time. And the reason it might be, maybe if you've ever come even close to hearing about it, is that the big clock, its template was used for the movie, the Kevin Costner movie. Have you ever seen No Way Out? Where Kevin Costner plays a guy who's in the Navy, and he's asked to find a killer, but actually the killer is actually, it's not him, but that's who he's looking for. And Gene Hackman is in it. Kevin Costner. Who else is in? George Zunza, who I know from Law and Order. It's a fantastic movie. It has one of the greatest surprise endings of just about any, people talk about the ending, like The Usual Suspects or The Sixth Sense. Well, to me, No Way Out is up there as well. It's a movie. It's very 80s. It has to do with politics and the inner workings of Washington, D.C. Maybe some of you have seen it. Iman, the model, is in it, who, of course, was David Bowie's wife. She's in it. And I can't think of the woman's name, the actress's name, who actually is the murder victim in it, not to ruin it for anybody. But the big clock that came out in 1948 was the inspiration for No Way Out. Well, what's interesting to me, and finally watching this movie recently, maybe Kathy, you caught it because it was on TCM, right? I saw it was coming up and I DVR'd it. It's interesting how watching it reminds me of what we all do now here in 2022. Of course, 80 years later, with the internet and with our phones and video cameras and all of these things we now have at our disposal, watching that movie reminded me so much of us. We find out about a disappearance and we go out there trying to find more about it. Maybe if it's very early on, maybe we go to Web Sleuths or we go to Namus. We're checking local news stories and things like what I do when when I'm ready to do another Unfound Now. I get very involved. I get very quickly, deeply involved in that disappearance, even though it's really new. I start going to different news articles, trying to find out as much as I can before I do one of those monthly episodes of Unfound Now. And so it's interesting to watch that being done, at least in a movie, in 1948 terms. That a reporter is, he's supposed to go here and talk to this person. This woman's supposed to go talk to that person. We got to figure out what's going on here. And they're all working for this mystery magazine. And then a murder happens right in the middle of all of this, and how these people go about trying to figure out what happened. It's a really, really good movie. It has a very high rating, like on Rotten Tomatoes. Ray Milland is in it. Maybe some of you know him from Dial for Murder. He's not the murderer in that movie, but he's the guy who hires the guy who's supposed to kill Grace Kelly. It's an Alfred Hitchcock movie. Ray Milland is in this movie. Ray Milland is also in a couple episodes of Columbo, if you might remember. And then Marina Sullivan, I don't know. I know she was a big actress at the time, but I don't know some of the other things in which she was in. Kathy, you're right. Charles Lawton was in it as too. But once again, I don't know him as well. But Ray Milland, I know a lot of the things that he was in. So if you'd like getting a taste of true crime in 1940s terms in a movie, I would recommend you try to find the movie The Big Clock. And the reason it's called The Big Clock is because where this all happens is in this building, and the building is known for having this huge, huge clock. So it's so huge, people can like crawl or walk inside of it. And it plays a part in the plot for the movie. So I was really looking forward to seeing that for a long time. And what I do is I will go through the guide on the TV. I'll go like days or a week in advance on TCM to see if there's any movies coming up, old movies that I've never seen that I want to see. And then I'll hit the record button. And this was one of them. So I don't know if that's a movie that would be available on Amazon Prime. It's not on Netflix, but is it on Hulu, or do you have to rent it or buy it somewhere? I don't know. But if you ever get to see the movie The Big Clock, I think you're really going to like it. I think you're really going to like it. Also, if you love the Kevin Costner movie No Way Out, which is one of my favorite movies. It's not a big budget movie, but it did fairly well at the time, even though the budget wasn't, that big, but it had Kevin Costner. It's really the movie that put Kevin Costner on the map. That, and of course, the movie The Untouchables. But that led, of course, then to, everything that all the other things that he ended up doing, Field of Dreams and all of those. It really got started with No Way Out. And I have it on DVD, by the way. All right. The other thing that I want to talk about, and I told at least one of my Irish listeners that I would be talking about tonight, is that, once in a while I'd like to pick out maybe some disappearance or something that has gone on. And I don't know if I'm ever going to get to cover it Unfound. I'm still very open to covering this disappearance as an episode of Unfound, but it's kind of been on my mind because we do have listeners in Ireland. I communicate with a couple of them, and there have been some disappearances in Dublin, for example, that are some real head scratchers. Sheree is saying that you can watch The Big Clock on YouTube for $3. Thank you, Sheree. I think it's a good $3 spent. I think it's a fantastic movie. Once again, if you like old movies like that, I do. I love like The Third Man with Orson Welles, and Sunset Boulevard, and Casablanca, and Key Largo, and Citizen Kane. A lot of those, old black and white movies. I don't like going back to the silent era, but you know what I mean. So if you're into that, go to YouTube, and I would spend that $3 to watch The Big Clock. I think it's really worth it. Anyway, because I have some Irish listeners, I kind of pay attention to what is going on over there with some disappearances. And within the last few years, they've had a couple real stumpers that are still unsolved. But the one I want to talk about tonight, just to kind of give you, because it came to my mind just recently, thinking about some of these disappearances that have happened outside of the United States. And what I mean by that, I don't mean disappearances that have happened in Canada, which is kind of like the United States when it comes to law enforcement and everything, but like maybe a disappearance that has happened in France, maybe a disappearance that's happened in Germany, maybe it's a disappearance that's happened in Japan or something like that. So I've actually kind of been doing like Google searches for those things, because then I start thinking, well, how would we think about that disappearance if it happened in the United States? What would we think? How would we compare and contrast? Would there be cultural, different things about our culture that would make us think in a different way than how they handle things in Japan? Of course, we know Japan, a very, very safe country. Not a lot of crime in Japan, but still they do have disappearances. So in a country like that where crime rate is low, but they still have disappearances, what do we think about that? In contrast to thinking about disappearances in the United States where crime is a lot higher. So what I'm talking about is the disappearance of Trevor Dealy. And like I said, this is a disappearance. People have asked me, Ed, do you think you'll ever cover that? Because I think this is the most well-known disappearance in Irish history. And I think it's also on my mind because I was just reading something about an Irish disappearance, or a disappearance that happened in Ireland. I don't know if I could call it an Irish disappearance. I don't know if that's politically correct. But a disappearance that happened in Ireland that kind of got solved, and it had to do with a river and a car, very much like what we now experience in the United States with Adventures of Purpose, diving down, finding missing people in their vehicles. So I think that was also on my mind. And, what would we think if Trevor Dealy, if you don't know Trevor Dealy, this is a disappearance that's now over 20 years old. This is a young man who was out in December of 2000. He went to his company's Christmas party. Went to this pub. They had this Christmas party. Got into the next morning of December 8th of 2000. And of all places, he decided to walk over to his actual place of employment. I forget what he did, but it was some kind of business that the office was open 24 hours. Did it have to do with finance or something like that? So it always had to be, there were always people there because some people were watching like the Asian market, some people watching the American market, some people watching the German markets. And you have that in the United States too, where, we think of stockbrokers as thinking like a 9-to-5 job, but there are stockbrokers whose main concentration are, things going on in the Middle East. Well, you have to be up at like 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. because that's when it's daytime over there. So I think it was kind of like that. And he knew that people would be there. So he was on his way home, walking home, and he stopped into his office. And I think he ended up getting an umbrella. It was kind of a rainy night in Dublin. Imagine that. And there was video of him waiting outside to be let in. And there was some stranger who was standing there who has played a role. People have been suspicious of this guy since Trevor went missing way back when, over 20 years ago. So Trevor goes in, he gets this umbrella, talks to a couple people who I guess couldn't make it to this party because they were at work or something. And then he left and he was walking home. You should know that Dublin, Ireland, not a violent city. Certainly not Chicago, certainly not some of the other areas in the United States that we maybe think of when we think about people, being shot on the streets. Certainly a lot safer than maybe, South American cities or, other cities in the world. So Dublin, I would say it's even safer than London. So no big deal. Gonna walk home at like 3 a.m. No big deal. He never makes it. And there is a video of him walking by this bank, and there's like an ATM camera, and he walks by the camera, and then about 30 seconds later, somebody else walks by the camera. So if we were to put that in distance, I guess you could say that this person might have been, 150 feet. How far does it take to walk in 30? How far can you walk at normal speeds in 30 seconds? 150 feet, probably half of a football field, maybe something like that. So the person wasn't necessarily close, but people were suspicious of this person who was behind Trevor because this person has never come forward. The Gardaí, which is the Irish police, the Ireland police, have been out there trying to find this person. This person's never come forward. So a lot of people are suspicious of this person. And some people believe this is the same person who was hanging out outside where Trevor worked, even though these two locations are not near each other. And so what happened to Trevor Dealy? They went and looked in this kind of canal area, but it was days later. They didn't find anything. There's really no place to hide anybody. The video didn't show any cars on the street at night. Somebody pulled up and, shoved him into a car for some reason. This isn't really what goes on in Dublin, people disappearing off the streets necessarily, although there have been a couple disappearances in Dublin since, but not quite like Trevor's. And so it's been this huge, huge mystery in Dublin. And so I started thinking, if this was the United States and a guy was walking home from his job at 3 a.m, what would we think? And I have to admit, it kind of falls into that, Jesse Ross type of disappearance, early morning, and maybe we've covered a couple others. But of course, the tough part about this is we have to remember that Trevor doesn't seem was into drugs or anything like that. Didn't have a suspicious background. Wasn't into any criminal activity. Had a job. Had a good job. We have to all factor all of that into that when we start thinking about comparing it to an American disappearance. So it kind of, in a way, reminds me of Jesse Ross. Of course, Jesse Ross's. Me personally, I think that Jesse Ross caused his own disappearance. A lot of people think differently. Totally fine. So I was thinking about Trevor Dealy's disappearance in American terms, and I think it's kind of the same thing. If this was an American disappearance, I think I'd think the same thing, that I'd be thinking that Trevor caused his own disappearance. Why? I don't know. But you should know that he did disappear along a road that is right next to this kind of canal that runs to the river, this river that goes through Dublin. Now, this river is not the Mississippi. It's not even the Delaware. I don't know how fast its current is or anything, but I think that is what I've decided. You know what? It's just interesting to me when you change the venue, take it from Dublin, Ireland, and you put it into a similar sized city in the United States, everything to me then becomes much clearer to me. In contrast to trying to think of it in Ireland terms, thinking of it in American terms, and you automatically think, oh yeah, he probably went into the river like, a lot of other people have done that have eventually been, found in the river. And of course, this is where the whole smiley face killer hoax comes from and everything else. And then you start thinking, what are the odds that somebody would, even in an American city, what are the odds that some guy's walking down the street and gets a text, gets thrown in a car and gets taken away? That happens to women. Certainly happens. Women going jogging, etc. I think that's the reason that what's her name in California got away with her story for so long, because women have been attacked, abducted, kidnapped, jogging. So, and in fact, I even talked about maybe a year ago, this woman who was out and a guy hit her on purpose. But with men, it's much less common. This is much less common. Why? Well, women just make an easier target. And that's why I urge all of you women, if you can, if you're not anti-gun, I would urge you to carry a gun. If you're in a state that doesn't allow you, you carry a knife, you carry pepper spray, you do whatever you got to do. When you're going out, you're walking, you're jogging, you're biking, all of those things. I don't care where it is. I don't care if it's right down here in Gulf Boulevard where no crime ever happens. This is what you should have. But I think I've decided with Trevor Dealy's disappearance that I think he went into the river for some reason, and the canal for some reason, by choice, I think. Julie is saying, hi, I guess she doesn't know about Trevor Dealy. Please check it out. Trevor actually has his own Wikipedia page, Julie. Maybe that might help you. The Roracle says, more women should get trained in some sort of martial arts. I know my daughter is trained in Taekwondo. That's good, the Roracle. But here's what I would say to women. That's all fine. Learning those things, perfectly fine. But the key is not to let those attackers get close in the first place. So you want to have a weapon that you can use at distance. This is one of the problems, like using a knife for self-defense. The only way you can use it is if the person is close. Whereas if you have a gun, if you have pepper spray, which sometimes some of that pepper spray can shoot 5-10 feet, you want to keep that attacker away from you, because once he gets in close, all bets are off. You got to remember that. You want to have that weapon that you can use at distance. Granted, knife's good last resort, but you want it for women particularly. You don't want to let that guy get close. You want to be able to attack him at distance. So that's the only thing I would say to that, the Roracle. So there you go. Wanted to talk about Trevor Dealy. I don't know how much I've even mentioned him before. But looking at it's just weird. Looking at it in American terms kind of changes the point of view for some reason. Sheree says, never let them take you to a second location. Yes, Sheree, very good. Nice. That's very true. Yeah, no matter what. All right. We've come to the end, man. This time went fast. The fastest 2 hours in podcasting or YouTubing. This Friday, we will be celebrating the 6th anniversary of Unfound. I call it the first Friday of September every year because that's when the first episode came out way back in 2016. It will be the original interview I did with Mary Lyle. So we will be covering Susie Lyle's disappearance. I will have some new words. Probably at the beginning, really don't know everything that I'm going to say right now. To be honest, I'll work on that tomorrow. But it will be her interview again. It's always weird to go back to the beginning, and maybe all of you will get to hear have a little bit of a chuckle to see how my interviewing style has changed. My voice has changed, my manner has changed, my shtick has changed, my tone has changed because I hear it too. But you get to hear my interview with Mary Lyle, which I still think to this day is the best interview Mary ever did. I'm a little biased. But that's what we'll be doing this Friday. And I'll have some words after just to talk about the last 6 years and some of my insights. And maybe, if anybody's wondering, how do you get a podcast to the 6-year mark? I might talk a lot about that a little bit. So that will be this Friday. The interview for the next Friday, September 9th, is already done. Did that interview last weekend. We'll go back to disappearances, a new disappearance on September 9th. Pretty sure I'm going to be doing an interview later this week, if not this weekend, for September 16th. Pretty sure I already have the disappearance we'll be covering for September 23rd. So really pretty much September is already filled up. We get to work ahead a little bit here. So there you go. And of course, I have a newsletter that I need to work on over the next few days as well, being that we're coming up on September 1st. Well, that is about it, man. It went fast. Good. Deborah's getting out of here. Have a good week. The Royal's saying, keep your head on a swivel. Sharia is saying, we're not quite done yet. We can have a couple minutes left. But I just want to thank all of you. I know many of you have followed the live show from when it was on Wednesdays for all those episodes of 4 years or something like that. And now all of you tune in on Mondays instead. Thank you for moving from Wednesday to Monday, making time for this live show. Thank you. And I will remind all of you again to check that special announcement that is now in your podcast feed about how this live show will have its own podcast feed. Please subscribe to it. I would deeply, deeply appreciate it. And so that's all I got. What would I talk about tonight? I spent about 45 minutes on myself. Disc golf, going to the dentist, my Friday fiasco, the rocket that didn't launch, no poll this week, reflections on the update episode, Unfound Live, August record, locating the lost interview, Charlene who paints during Unfound, Namus was down, Unfound Now episode, new trailer for YouTube videos, talked about the Big Clock, the movie, Trevor Dealy, finished it up with this Friday's episode 6th anniversary. That's all I got. I'm kind of worn out. It's been a long day, but I'll get some good sleep, get up tomorrow, do some Unfound work, watch some disc golf. It's going to be a good day. And everybody take it easy. Charles, you take it easy. Thank you for tuning in every Monday. Really appreciate my nephew making time. Thank you, Charles. Really appreciate it. And to the rest of you, the same. Good night.